Hey, what's going on, ASM? It's so good to be back with you guys this week. Just want to welcome you all in, wherever it is you're watching from. Maybe ASM's your home, maybe it's not, but we're just so glad that you're taking some time to spend with us today, and we just want to welcome you in here. We are in a brand new series today called Jesus Says, and pretty much what the next few weeks are going to consist of is we're just going to take a few weeks and just talk about some of the most important, some of those critical teachings that Jesus himself gave. And we're gonna be in the scriptures that are arguably the most profound teachings of Jesus, the most important teachings of Jesus. And so, Jesus taught about all kind of different topics, all kind of different material, all kind of different subjects. And the place that we're gonna be in is Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7. And so I chose those three chapters because, we're coming off of the Seeing Clearly series, and I'm asking God, I'm like, well, where do we need to go next? What do we need to do next? And the one thing that kept coming back to me is like, lead them to me. And I'm like, well, I do that. I try to do that every week, God. Like, what exactly do you mean, lead them to you? And I found myself in Matthew chapter 5. And if you notice, like a lot of Bibles, whenever Jesus is speaking, the color of the text changes color. Like the one I have, it changes red whenever it's Jesus himself talking. And so I found myself in Matthew chapter 5. And I've always known that, this is the Sermon on the Mount, his big teaching, but I've never really realized, like, chapter 5, 6, and 7 is pretty much literally, like, all red. It's just him speaking, him teaching. And so I'm reading through that, and I'm like, dang. Like, nowhere else in the Bible is it just him just doing legitimate teaching on topic after topic after topic. And I know for teenagers, you guys, I know especially for me when I was your age, I had lots of questions about, how important is prayer and fasting, or why is it really important to love the people that don't like us or that seem to hate us? Or like, why is it so important that we don't deal with worry, like that we don't live in worry? Like, I have worry, but what does the Bible say about that? What does Jesus have to say about that? And so we have questions about all these things, all these topics. And so over the next few weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to just pinpoint a couple of specific topics that kind of deal specifically with teenagers, things that y'all go through, and we're going to relate it back to the teaching that he gave on the Sermon on the Mount and see what he has to say about it himself. And so today we're going to start in Matthew 5, verses 1 and 2, which is our key scripture for all of this. It says, "Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down, and his disciples came to him, and he began to teach them." So today, like for the very beginning of this, we're going to start at the very beginning. So if this message were to have a subtitle, I'd probably call it, "It's a Blessing." And so see, the very first things that Jesus talks about on his Sermon on the Mount, on this big teaching, is how much of a blessing certain things in life is. How much of a blessing certain things in our lives are. And I know that a lot of times, especially when we start reading these, you're gonna hear, like, blessed are those who deal with this, blessed are those who go through this, and you're like, that doesn't really sound like much of a blessing. But let's just see what he has to say about it. Let's dive into the scripture. We're going to read through verses 3 through 12 in the NIV, and then I'm going to break it down verse by verse in the Message, because the Message just kind of breaks it down a lot better. It has a little bit more of an understanding, and I'll kind of elaborate on that. But we're going to read through it one good time in the NIV, and let's see what Jesus has to say. Matthew chapter 5, verse 3. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." So that's kind of a lot, right? And if you go back to the beginning of it, it's like, let's go back. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who are meek. You read all this and it's like, blessed are those who are this. And in our human minds, in the human realm, it doesn't really sound like that's much of a blessing, right? But what I love is that Jesus didn't just stop there. He didn't just say, blessed are those who are poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those who are meek. He gave examples and reasons why immediately after. So, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. So there are reasons why these things are blessings, even though they may not look like it. And so let's get to breaking it down. Let's go to the Message version of this stuff. So, Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, the very first one, it says, "You're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more of God and His rule." With less of you, there is more of God. So John chapter 3, verse 30 actually says, "He must become greater, I must become less." I remember hearing that verse at a Winter Jam concert years ago. I think it was Lecrae brought it out. That was like one of his big, scriptures at the time. And that scripture's always kind of stuck with me because, one thing I've realized that in my life is that when I try to go on my own and when I try to do things on my own and when I try to make decisions on my own and when I try to just do everything by myself and leave God out of it, that's when everything tends to start falling apart. It might look good and feel good for a little while, but eventually it catches up to me and crap kind of hits the fan, and now I get in this place where I'm desperate for Him and I need Him, and I get to the place where I'm like, all right, I can't do it by myself anymore. I need You. And so now I flip it, and now I'm getting more of Him and less of all this other stuff that I've been trying to deal with on my own. And now He's able to work through me because I'm giving Him an opportunity. I'm giving Him access to me. I'm saying, God, You can work through me. I can't do it on my own. I know You can do it through me, so I'm going to trust in that. But that's a big part. We are blessed when we have less of ourselves and more of Him. Verse 4. "You're blessed when you feel you've lost what is most dear to you. Only then can you be embraced by the one most dear to you." So this one's kind of talking about loss, okay? Blessed are those when you feel lost, when you've lost what is most dear to you, and only then you can be embraced by the one most dear to you. So we're talking about loss here. And I know, for me, again, personally, I've dealt with loss. I've dealt with family members passing away. I've dealt with relationships ending. I've dealt with even losing friendships, losing pets. And, none of these things are blessings. It doesn't seem like it, at least. But I remember, especially when my grandfather passed away, or, when me and my girlfriend would break up back in high school, whatever, people always hit me with that, it won't last forever. You'll be fine. And in the moment, I'm like, I know that, but I don't want to hear that, right? Like, I know that this isn't going to last forever. It feels like it is, but I know that it's not, but I don't want to hear that right now. But the crazy thing is, as much as I don't want to hear it, it's still the truth. Time went on, and eventually, I didn't hurt as much anymore. I wasn't as distraught anymore, I guess. But I still went through a losing process. I lost somebody that I loved. I lost somebody that I cared for. And Jesus says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." I went through a time of mourning, but guess what? I also went through a time of being comforted because Jesus said so. Let's move to verse 5. Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. "You're blessed when you're content with just who you are, no more, no less. That's the moment you find yourselves proud owners of everything that can't be bought." The one thing that I kind of get out of this verse is it's so important that we figure out who we are and who God has created us to be. I know it's really big in the lives of juniors and seniors in high school right now, and even freshmen and sophomores in college. That's kind of that age where you're trying to figure out who you are and what you want to do with your life and who you want to be and what you want to be. And I've heard countless times before, people who are in relationships that get broken up with, and they're just like, I need to find who I am. And then friendships and all this stuff that they need to find who they are. And it's sad because they don't know who they are because they've been finding themselves in somebody else for so long, or they've been finding themselves in something else for so long that now they don't even know who they really are deep down. They don't really know what their likes are, what their dislikes are. They don't know what they want as a career. They don't know what they want in a relationship. They don't know a lot of stuff because they don't truly know deep down who they are. And so I think it's important that we figure out who we are. And not only just that, but Figure out who has God created you to be. What are your gifts? What are your talents? What are your abilities, man? What are some things that you love? What are some things that you just enjoy doing? And how can you use those things to enhance and advance His kingdom? You've got to figure out who you are. It's a blessing. Verse 6. You're blessed when you work up a good appetite for God. He's food and drink and the best meal you'll ever eat. You're blessed when you work up a good appetite for God. So what I kind of get out of this is like we've got to hunger and thirst for Him more than the things of this world. There are going to be things and people and all kind of other stuff that get our attention. But we've got to be in the place where we are giving Him our attention. He is getting our attention more than the things of the world. We've got to have a hunger and a thirst for Him unlike anything else. We've got to be hungry for His word. We've got to be hungry for His love. We've got to be hungry for what He has for us. We've got to be hungry for what He wants to do through us. It's a blessing. Let's go to verse 7. You're blessed when you care. And at the moment of being careful, you find yourselves cared for. See, one thing I get about this one is that it's not a bad thing to be caring or have emotions. I know that in the society and the culture we live in, a lot of times they say you can't have feelings, you can't have emotions, like, and especially for men, like you can't cry, you can't do this. But like it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to care for people. It's okay to show your feelings every now and then. It's okay to show your feelings just in general, not just every now and then. But a lot of times we have this misperception or whatever that when we try to be caring for people, we get run over. Or when we try to be caring for people, we kind of get the short end of the stick. And you know, maybe sometimes, maybe we do. But it's not about us, it's about God. And when we're caring for others, when we're caring for His children, when we're caring for the people that He loves, then we too will be cared for. Let's go to verse 8. This is one of my favorites in all of them. You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and heart put right. Then you can see God in the outside world. And so I love this one because it really just speaks volume to me about like one of the best ways to see God is by seeing Him in you first. Hagen, what do you mean see God in me first? I want to take you to Psalm 139, verses 13 through 16. It's one of my favorite verses in the entire Bible because it's just so beautifully written, and it really is just a truth to how good God is and how much He really cares about us. So Psalm 139, verses 13 through 16. You formed my innermost being, shaping my delicate inside and my intricate outside, and wove them all together in my mother's womb. I thank you, God, for making me so mysteriously complex. Everything you do is marvelously breathtaking. It simply amazes me to think about it, how thoroughly you know me, Lord. You have informed every bone in my body when you created me in the secret place, carefully, skillfully shaping me from nothing to something. You saw who you created me to be before I became me. That's just so beautiful. You know, God had a plan from the very beginning about who you were going to be, what He was going to put inside you, how He was going to use you. And I think when you start seeing the delicacy and the intricacy of, okay, He really does love me. Like, I'm not weird, I'm not odd, I'm not different, but He's put stuff in me that's going to help other people. We're not all the same. Me personally, I like sports, I like video games. Like those are my two main things. Like those are the two things that I can just do and connect with people, and it's not difficult. I can just go out on a basketball court and start shooting ball with boys and just talk and cut up and have fun, and it's not that big a deal. But if I go to like an art class or something where I'm like painting, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I don't know how to paint. I can't even draw a stick figure. So stuff like that, like I have to think more and I have to adjust more to the atmosphere that I'm in, and so it's a little more difficult, but See, painting's just not me, man. But maybe it's you. Maybe your thing is music. Maybe your thing is writing or drawing. Or I don't know. I just know my thing is sports or video games. We're all different. He put different talents, different gifts, different abilities, different dreams, different desires in all of us. And those can all be used to help someone else in their walk with Christ. Because I'm not the only person that likes sports. I'm not the only person that likes video games. But I know God put that stuff in me so that I can relate to other people that do. I can vibe and connect with other people that do. And when you start building that relationship, start building that trust, then you can really start developing a relationship on a spiritual level, and you can go further and deeper with their walk with God and see how they're doing. And you can do the same thing in an art class or a music class or a drawing class or whatever. Figure out what He's put in you and use that to advance His kingdom. Use that to be an influence for the people, for the lives of the people around you. I love that one. Let's move on to verse 9. Chapter 5, verse 9. You're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight. That's when you discover who you really are and your place in God's family. See, this one kind of spoke to me too, because it's, we said it's not bad to be it's not bad to be caring. Well, this one, it's also not bad to be a peacemaker. It's not a bad thing to just kind of be the middleman for people, right? I know one thing that kind of came to my mind when this was like the difference between lifting people up and gossiping about them behind their back. Talking about don't put up with fights, don't do this, but you're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight. What if instead of gossiping or talking bad about people behind their back, we lifted them up? Or what if when somebody else was doing it, instead of engaging in that, we just kind of cut it off there as like, hey, no, this person's actually really good at this, or this person's actually really thoughtful about this. What would happen if we started doing that in all of our conversations? If we started just lifting people up instead of bringing them down? And what's crazy is, and I know this in my own life, is that a lot of times what you tend to say about someone in private sometimes not only spills out into the public, but anything you gossip about another person to with, a lot of times that person will kind of take that viewpoint of the guy or girl that you're talking about, and now they think that stuff about them, even though they didn't know it before, and now they have this false sense of like reality or something about this person. Now they're like thinking, oh, that person really is weird, or like, oh, they really are kind of just, I don't know, I didn't know they were that rude or that mean or whatever. And in reality, like, they hadn't even dealt with that, only you had dealt with that, but because now you have now like told them all this junk behind this person's back. Now they're taking on what you already have. And it can all be simplified if we just lift people up instead. I just know that from my own experience. Like, there have been times where you're talking to friends, and before you know it, you're talking junk about one or the other, and then before I know it, I'm looking at my friend and I'm like, yeah, you really are. They just bring stuff out. And I would rather just not know sometimes. The point I'm trying to get at is, let's lift people up, man. Let's just lift people up for the kingdom. Let's move on. Verse 10. It says, you're blessed when your commitment to God provokes persecution. The persecution drives you even deeper into God's kingdom. Let's actually carry on verse 11 through 12. Not only that, but count yourselves blessed every time people put you down or throw you out or speak lies about you to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort and they are uncomfortable. You can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer even. For though they don't like it, I do. And all heaven applauds. And know that you are in good company. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this kind of trouble. And so these last three verses, Jesus kind of hits on like, hey, you're going to go through hard times. You're going to go through persecution. You're going to go through times where it's not easy to share the gospel. It's not easy to live this life out. There are people who are going to pick on you. There are people who are going to try to stone you. There are people who are going to hate you, but blessed are those who are committed to God and endure persecution. You're going to get attacked. You're going to feel out of place. But we've got to remember that we are not of this world. And what's cool is that it says in verse 12 that heaven rejoices. You go through this stuff, heaven rejoices. When you go against the things of the world, heaven applauds, heaven rejoices. Because it's easy to just go with the world. There are plenty of outlets, there are plenty of things to take part in. But when you go against the grain and continue to live out your life for God, heaven's looking down on you, and they're so proud. And that's a blessing. And so as we kind of come to a close tonight, I want to have an ending scripture that I want to share, and that's Matthew chapter 7, verses 28 through 29. And this is immediately after Jesus is done with his teachings. He's taught for 3 full chapters, chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. And so now it ends, and it says, when Jesus concluded his address, the crowd burst into applause. They had never heard teaching like this. It was apparent that he was living everything he was saying, quite a contrast to their religion teachers. This was the best teaching they had ever heard. And so I love how it says that it was apparent that he was living everything he was saying. Then it goes on to say quite a contrast to their religion teachers. If you're in ASM, you know, I talk a lot of times about the difference between religion and relationship, and how when we're caught up in religion, it's all about doing this and doing this and doing this and making sure that we don't do that, or do that. And then when we actually do this that we're not supposed to do, then we just feel bad and we're convicted, and it's draining. It's mentally, physically, spiritually draining. But it's about a relationship. And Jesus wasn't this religious guy. He was a relational guy. And that's why when he was done speaking, he spoke with authority. He was living out what he was, he was teaching what he was living out. Or he was living out what he was teaching. It's one and one. You see, Jesus not only spoke with authority, but he walked with authority. He lived out what he taught and believed. And because he did so, many, many people followed him. And not only did many, many people follow him then, but because of the power and because of the love and the grace and the mercy that we've seen through all the years and that we've gotten out of the Bible, many people still decide to follow him because he's real. And so we have the opportunity to also live out what we believe about him. And what comes with that will be opportunities to show him to others. When we start living out, truly living out what we believe about God, what we know about him, opportunities will rise up for us to show them his love, his forgiveness, his grace, his mercy. See, life's not always easy. I know we talked about some of this stuff. It's like, oh, it's a blessing to be persecuted. It's a blessing to be poor in the spirit. It's a blessing to mourn. And you're like, it don't really seem like a blessing. But it is. It may not seem like it at the time. It may not feel like it at the time. But, there's a reason that we go through everything that we do. Many things aren't always viewed as blessings. But it's important to remember that a life lived for him is the biggest blessing of all. And even though we don't always view these things as blessings when they're happening to us, it's also important to know that they are blessings. And as long as our eyes are fixed on him and we're chasing after him, no matter what's going on in our life, we have peace in knowing that he's got us, and that even though it may not look like it or feel like it, we are blessed because Jesus says so. So whatever you're going through right now, you may not particularly see it as a blessing. But all I can tell you is that if you're watching this, if you're hearing this, that means that you're alive and you're breathing. Lord, you're alive and you're breathing. And that means that there's a purpose for you. There's a reason that you're alive. There's a reason that you're breathing. There are things that God has put in you, and he wants to use those things to bless others. He wants to use you to be a blessing to others. Jesus loves you, and you matter. And that in itself is a blessing. Let's pray. Father, I just thank you for this message. I thank you for everyone that's watching this, God. And I just pray that the words that came out of my mouth, God, they just resonate in their hearts and in their soul and in their spirit. I pray that they go back and they do their own research as well. They're not just taking my word for it, but that they actually go back through and study and read and grow closer with you and figure out why these things are blessings. And so, Father, right now in this place, I just pray that moving forward, that there's more of you and less of us. And I pray that as we continue to move forward in this series, that we continue to open up our hearts to what you have to say about all kind of different topics and all kind of different situations. And I pray that you use us to bring others into your kingdom. And I just pray that you continue to speak to us clearly throughout these next few weeks. So in your mighty and powerful name I pray. Amen. Amen. Hey, God-based students, so glad that you guys tuned in with us. I'm looking forward to continuing with this series. I know this was kind of a broad topic, but I think it's important that we went over it, And so I encourage you to go back through and over this next week, just do some more research, do some more studying on Matthew 5, verses 1 through 12. Read more about the blessings. Which one maybe speaks more to you? Which one maybe means more to you? And then just kind of dive in on that and just see what God has to say about that to you. So, but I am looking forward to the next few weeks of this series. I think there's some really good stuff in here, some really good material about, what Jesus says. So I think it's going to be really good, but again, we'll do part 2 next time, so we'll see you then. All right? Y'all have a good week.